Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at. Up above the world so high, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, 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 twinkle.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Wonderland Wednesday. I'm back today with Shaina and Sarah, and we're talking about the Muppets version of Alice in Wonderland, which was not really a direct adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, more like a series of spoof sketches that were part of an episode of the Muppet Show back in 1980. They didn't even have the whole story in any semblance of order, so I think we're just going to talk about what amused us instead of trying to go through the story like we usually do.
Well, first off, the rabbit usually seems to be a little more absent-minded and just hop along and distracted and fairly nice from what I've seen in other adaptations, but in this one he was actually kind of mean and rude and just, where's my hole? Where's my hole? And he's like, oh, there it is! Boing! Whee! And that set me off.
That really set her off. That was basically the first scene, and then there was a whole song as they fell down the rabbit hole. And it was sort of like all the characters from Wonderland were sort of falling with her, along with a lot of other weird things.
I appreciated the talking marmalade.
Yes. The marmalade sort of looked like it had Ernie's face on it.
I think the best part of the song was where they said, who might we meet? Oh, Captain Hook. Because it's basically not true to the book.
And that was apparent because Fozzie was running around backstage dressed as the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, wondering when his scene was. After she gets to Wonderland, one of the first scenes is with the caterpillar, who is played by Floyd, who the caterpillar is, of course, smoking a hookah, and Floyd is sort of a stoned hippie. So he was kind of the perfect choice to play the caterpillar. And that started off a series of shrinking and growing by Alice, and Alice is shrinking and growing not just in the story, but she's like running around backstage gigantic, and then she's lost tiny, and there's a whole bit of the episode dedicated to trying to find her and moving on without her. They end up having the end in the middle of it, and they have the whole trial without Alice. And instead Marvin Suggs is there, and he's pounding everybody on the head with his mallet. I don't know what that was supposed to represent in the story. It was just completely random and ridiculous.
And don't forget Humpty Dumpty.
Yes, Humpty Dumpty was in this as well, because they couldn't find Alice, so they just put Humpty Dumpty on, singing a ridiculous song, and
filled with puns.
I was thinking to myself as he was singing, is this supposed to be funny? And none of us were laughing. The song was mercifully short and ended with him falling off the wall, and all the king's horses and men came along and trampled him to death.
And the horse looks at the camera like, I did a good job, didn't I?
He was very pleased with himself.
His teeth were kind of cute.
Oh, it was ridiculous. It was hilarious. Another thing I appreciated was the inclusion of the Jabberwocky scene, and Sarah really liked this scene as well, because one of the creatures I can't think of the creature's name. Do you remember?
It was Brillick and the Sly, the Toes, Jar and Jimbo.
Apparently Sarah has this poem memorized.
They might be the Mome Raths. Either way, they're the badger-like creatures with the corkscrew noses, and they did a wonderful job making Muppets of those creatures. I recognized them right away, and that was one of my favorite things about this adaptation.
Yes, adaptation.
If not my favorite thing. Definitely favorite character out of the book that they put in there. And I thought that Muppets were kind of made for that scene. I'm glad they included it. They did a good job.
I really liked the Jabberwocky puppet too. It was very close to the illustration in the book, except less creepy and more goofy.
They purposefully made it less creepy. Like, it didn't actually die. It's still talking while it's decapitated, and it wants to just get its body and go home. And they made another terrible pun. You should quit while you're ahead. It was extremely punny.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the punniest version we've ever seen. I don't know if any of the other versions really are punny outside of whatever he has in the book.
Yeah.
Not that we've seen so far.
I don't know, somebody loved puns.
The Muppets are kind of known for their terrible jokes sometimes, especially Fozzie.
I love it. I can relate to this.
The other thing that might be noted is that they injected songs that had nothing to do with Alice in Wonderland. There was this whole medley of jazz era happy songs.
And they were all sung by Dr. Teeth, who was portraying the Cheshire Cat. He was kind of perfect for the Cheshire Cat because he has a big toothy grin himself.
But they had a whole group sing thing going on.
Yeah, he was leading it, but I think a whole bunch of other Muppets were all gathered around singing with him. Miss Piggy, of course, wants to be the star of everything, and she insisted on being Alice. But of course, Alice was already cast. They had a young Brooke Shields as Alice. They actually said that she was the youngest guest star that they'd had so far. I think she was only like 15.
Yep.
And Miss Piggy was quite upset that she wasn't going to be the star, but she agreed to be the queen because she felt that she could portray royalty. Of course, she was mad that she only gets one line, and she ends up trying to get rid of Alice in various ways. In the final scene, we end up at the Mad Tea Party, which, of course, they have to end the Muppets episode with the most crazy scene. You have a lot of actual lines from the book, but all in ridiculous ways. One of the chickens is portraying the dormouse for some reason, but Rizzo the rat is still in another teapot. I don't know why.
He had a good costume.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the funniest parts was Statler and Waldorf, the two old men from the balcony, come dancing in as Tweedledee and Tweedledum. that was really funny. At the very end of the episode, they all go out singing
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, they all end up singing The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, apparently spurred on by Fozzie dressed up as the Tin Man. It was the perfect way for the Muppets to end this ridiculous episode, singing the wrong song from the wrong story. And one thing that we found really hilarious was that after the credits had rolled, they had Statler and Waldorf commenting that Lewis Carroll was rolling in his grave.
That was a good inclusion.
Yes.
Pretty much distorted it in the most hilarious random way.
Well, I think that's all for today. I think Sarah and I are planning to watch another version of Through the Looking Glass next time. And we have a few more that we want to watch with Shaina, so you'll see her back eventually as well. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Because of the wonderful things he does. We're off to see the wizard. The wonderful 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 wizard of Oz.
What's that noise?
I think it's Lewis Carroll turning over in his grave.
Whoa!